Joey believes that every child should have access to a world-class physical education experience, and that teacher professional development is the key to achieving this. This is why he's dedicated thousands of hours blogging, vlogging, tweeting, podcasting, and creating a website that has helped inspire and connect physical educators from around the world. Joey has presented his ideas at the local, provincial, national, and international levels through various speaking and training events. He is recipient of Physical and Health Education Canada's Dr. Andy Anderson Young Professional Award for the province of Quebec. Joey also was educational finalist in the 6th Annual Shorty Awards, an awards ceremony honoring the best in social media. I've had the privilege of getting to know Joey and have seen him in action. His session at SHAPE last year was hands down the best session I've ever seen at a national conference. Joey is an amazing educator and definitely an inspiration to many. As Betty said, you're in for a treat. Please welcome Joey Feith.
Can everybody hear me? Is this on right now? No, is this not on?
No, it's not.
Okay. Maybe you can turn that one off?
I turned this one off.
Alright. Can everybody hear me if I'm talking like this though?
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to go with it. Hi everyone, my name's Joey, and I'm from Canada. And before I say anything else here, I have to say, this is my first time in California. For the past week, my wife and I were both teachers. We've been traveling around your beautiful state. And I have to say, this is the most beautiful place I have ever been in my entire life. Out of this world. And everybody that we've met here has been so incredibly fun, energetic, and kind. So before I go on, I really have to say a huge thank you to the entire CAHPERD team for having me come out here. I can't tell you how exciting this has been and how much it means to me to finally get to come to California. And most importantly, I want to say a huge thank you to Terry. I've been connected with Terry for just over a year now, and Terry has already helped me from so far away. She's helped me be a better teacher. And every time I mention Terry's name here, I get smiles, I get applause. Terry, you are a champion for our profession, and I cannot thank you enough for everything you've done for me, my students, and everyone here. So thank you so much. Also, Terry's from Canada, so I have to give her a shout out. Being polite is law in Canada, so we have to look out for all. Up in Canada, I teach at an amazing school called St. George's School, Montreal. Here are some of the wild childs that I get to work with on a daily basis. I teach grades 1, 2, 3, and 6, and I absolutely love my job. I cannot ask for a better job in this world. I'm so blessed that I get to go into work every day and do what I love. And I'm really pumped too because last year I finally got to sign a permanent contract at the school. So this is what I get to do now with my life, to get to be a teacher. So I'm just super excited. So teaching is definitely my passion. I love it. Even on the days that I hate it, I love it. When I'm not teaching though, I'm running a little website called PhysEd16.com. Anybody ever been to PhysEd16.com? All right, that's good. Thank you very much. Thank you. If you've never been, the PhysEd16.com is a place where I blog and all these things, with all different ideas and practices that I'm using in my teaching. It's also a place where I share a ton of resources that I built. Usually it's resources I built for my own teaching that I'll just share with teachers on the site. It's also the home base for PE Chat. So if you're on Twitter and you've never heard of PE Chat, it's a bi-monthly chat that happens on Twitter where we explore different topics related to phys ed. Our next chat's actually Monday, and the theme is creating a culture of physical literacy in your school. So I'm pretty pumped for that chat. If you're on Twitter, you should definitely check it out. Another thing I do at the site is I have my podcast that I record with my good friend Nathan Horn, who is an awesome phys ed teacher. He teaches out in Singapore. He's originally from Tasmania. And the phys ed podcast is just really us getting together and geeking out about technology and teaching and just rambling on forever about what we're doing in our classes. And I have no idea why people listen to it, but people do, so I figured I'd mention it here. So that's at PhysEd16.com. And I've been so lucky because through the work I've done with the site, I've been able to travel to all different parts of the world. And and I've been able to attend some of the best professional development opportunities that are available in our profession. And not only have I been able to attend these events, I've also been able to connect with some of the teachers who I truly believe are the best physical educators of our generation. Some of those teachers are sitting in this room right now. And if I haven't met them in person, then through the work that I've done on social media with the website, I've been able to build a network of over 20,000 teachers that I can reach out to and seek out for support. And teachers who have helped me, just expose me to ideas, who have really shined a light on my teaching and helped me take my teaching to all new levels. Now, there's two reasons why I want to talk about the website here to start off. First of all, the first reason is oftentimes I get so excited when I get up on stage to talk in front of teachers that I completely forget to mention who I am or what I do. And when I leave, people are like, who was that guy? I don't know, he's nice. I think he's from Canada. So I had to mention it. There's a little plug there at the beginning. The second reason is I'm about to stand up here and talk to you what I believe is the future of physical education. And that is a pretty bold thing to do from a guy who has a severe lack of letters after his name. But I really believe that the places I've been able to visit, the people I've been able to connect with, the network I've been able to build, and all the ideas, thoughts, and opinions that I've been exposed to over the years, those have helped me develop a unique perspective and given me some really good insight as to where our profession needs to go. And that's why I feel confident standing up here today and sharing with you. That sound good?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get going here. Before I talk about what the future of PhysEd is, let's talk about what I think it isn't. And I'm warning you right now, some of these things you might not agree with, but hear me out. There are three things I want to talk about, and these are three things that I believe that if we focus on in silos and don't connect them to all the other elements that make for quality physical education, it will not help us push our profession forward. And the first thing on this list is technology. Now, I've been at this conference since it started, and I've seen an absurd amount of Apple Watches, selfie sticks, and 360 cameras. So I'm pretty confident that there's a lot of PE geeks here in the room. Raise your hand if you identify as a PE geek. Okay. So just before you go and sharpen your pitchforks and come after me here, let me just remind you that for the last couple of years, I've been working really hard, traveling all around the world, trying to convince teachers as to why they should start applying technology in their teaching. I am a hardcore PE geek. Okay, I was up the other morning, you can ask my wife, I was up at 3:30 a.m. checking out apps because I couldn't fall asleep. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Playing around with some habit app. I was like, oh, I could probably use this in my teaching. I love technology. That technology can be an amazing tool if it's used to help enhance student learning. But what I've noticed is that sometimes teachers try and use technology as a shortcut. They try and figure out how they can get out some of the boring parts of teaching. Parts like planning, assessment, and giving feedback. And the thing is that we can't be using technology that way. And by the way, when you see these blue screens, these are some of the main points here I want to drive home. As excited as we are about technology, it's important for us to remember that there's no magic app that's going to save our teaching. If you want to be the best teacher you can be, the type of teacher that your students deserve, you, not your smartphone, you need to go out and do the work. You can't just launch a games app, choose an activity from the directory, and call that physical education. The same way that you can't just record your students playing and say, oh look, learning. No, technology can be an amazing tool, don't get me wrong, and I've used it a lot in my teaching. It can be an amazing tool, but as long as it's aligned with curriculum objectives, and as long as it's helping your students learn. If you're doing that, then you are using technology in a purposeful and meaningful way. What technology can't be, though, is it can't be a band-aid for bad teaching practices. So that's why I'm worried that if we all get caught up in this tech, and apps, that we might lose sight as to what's really important for us to be doing as physical educators. Oh, I just got 10,000 steps. I'm sorry, that wasn't planned. So, number one on that not list technology. Number 2, this might seem shocking coming from me, is social media. Now hold the phone here. Before we all get Joey is an idiot trending on Twitter, let me just remind you that I have done everything within my power to help teachers from around the world connect, share, and collaborate with each other through social media. I love social media, and it's had a huge impact on my own professional development. It can be a great tool for professional development, but only if we use it in a way that helps us reflect on our teaching practices, identify areas in which we need to improve, and then go out and make those connections, connect with people who can help us grow in those areas. If you're doing that, that is a winning strategy for social media as a tool for professional development. But if you're using social media just to broadcast your own ideas, or build your soapbox, or get drunk off your follower count, and completely lose sight as to what's important, your student learning, your students learning, well then you're not using social media in a way that's going to help you move forward. We need to be using social media as a tool to help challenge our own practice, to help us rethink what we know about physical education and grow as educators. I was listening to a podcast last year, the Tim Ferriss podcast. Anybody listen to Tim Ferriss's podcast? I really recommend it. It's a great podcast. And there's a conversation there that really got me thinking. The conversation was a quote. And the quote was, if you're always the smartest person in the conversations you're having, and by the way, just because you feel like the smartest doesn't mean that you are the smartest. If you're always the smartest person in the conversation you're having, you're in the wrong conversations. We can't just go on social media and continuously give each other high fives and thumbs up and good jobs and everything and expect ourselves to grow and become the best teachers we can be. We have to be challenging ourselves. And that's why social media, if we all get caught up, it's like, oh yeah, social media is the future, unless we're using it as a real tool for professional development, it's not going to help us move forward as a profession. Now the third part here, I know a lot of you are going to start reaching for your tomatoes, but please don't, because these are the last clean clothes I have. I'm at the end of my trip here. But the third point is neuroscience. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years, you're probably aware of the fact that there's a ton of evidence being published that supports a strong link in between physical activity, cognitive function, and even academic achievement. And don't get me wrong, that is incredible. That's amazing. The fact that we know this now and that we can use it as a tool in our arsenal for our advocacy efforts, and more importantly, that we can use it and teach our students about the true benefits of physical activity and all of the way that it can help improve their lives, that is amazing. But the thing is that more and more I'm hearing teachers just talk about like, oh yeah, you know, like we need more PhysEd because it grows brain cells, and we need more PhysEd because it boosts math scores, and we need more PhysEd because it's going to make our students love science. Now, I read the book Spark 2, and I got all fired up after I read it, and I stayed up late. Jerry Maguire started typing up that mission statement that I sent out to my entire school board about why everybody should love everything I do as a physical educator. But the thing is, as much as it's really exciting, as much as everybody's up in arms about this and pushing for it, and like, yeah, this will help with math scores, yeah, this will help our students learn. The thing is, we need to remember something very important, and I really want you to pay attention here. We need to remember that our subject matter should not exist to serve as a primer for someone else's. Last I checked, everybody here in this room, myself included, we're physical educators, and we should be damn proud of that. The work we do is essential to the healthy development of the whole child. And the thing is that every child needs and deserves high-quality, effective physical education. The neuroscience is great, and it's an amazing tool, like I said. But I'm worried that if we only focus on that, that we're going to lose focus on the real purpose of what we do. The real reason physical education is important to schools. So that's why I want to put neuroscience on this not list. Again, 3 things here: technology, social media, and the neuroscience. If we silo ourselves into any of those topics and forget about all the other important things that makes up quality physical education, we're not going to push our profession forward. So we're going to move on here from the depressing part of the presentation to the positive one. And now we're going to talk about what I believe is the future of physical education. And number one on that list, more important than anything else, is a solid understanding and focus on physical literacy. Now, if you told me a couple years ago that I'd be up here on stage in California speaking to all these awesome California phys ed teachers, preaching the good word about physical literacy, I would have called you a liar right to your face. Because the truth is, I used to hate this term. Up in Canada, Physical Health and Health Education Canada, which is our equivalent of Shape America, they've been pushing physical literacy for a long time. And every time I hear it, I just thought it was some kind of annoying buzzword that they were throwing around trying to score more grant money. I mean, I was hearing teachers being like, oh yeah, all my students are so physically literate, they all know how to spell soccer. It just drives me insane. But it wasn't until I started connecting with people who are a lot smarter than me on Twitter that my opinion of physical literacy started to change. One of the people I connected with who completely changed my entire opinion of the way I view physical literacy is Dr. Amanda Stanek. Now, physical literacy doesn't have an official poster child, but if it did, it would be Amanda. She is such an amazing educator, and she fights for physical education everywhere she goes. And she helped me understand that what physical literacy is, really, it's the ability to feel confident and competent in a wide variety of activities, taking place in multiple environments, not just in our gyms, but multiple environments, which will allow students to engage in health-enhancing physical activity throughout their entire lifetimes. That's physical literacy, and that is what we need to be focused on. Think about it for a second. I want you all to think of a student. First one that comes to head. Wait, not the first one that comes to your mind. Think of the second one. Think of that student and think that your job isn't just to make sure that by the end of grade 6, that student's able to perform fundamental movement skills with a fully mature pattern. Your job isn't just that by the time that student graduates in high school, that they fully grasp advanced fitness and nutrition concepts. I want you to think about that student. And think about them when they're in their early 20s in college. And their friend calls them up and say, hey, do you want to play intramurals this term? Their immediate reaction should be yes. Because at some point, you help them develop that confidence. And like Dean was talking about, through that, help them develop that confidence that they just want to go for it as soon as the offer is there. Think about that student when they're 40 and they have a family and a 9-to-5 job and a nice house. Think about that student going for a run every morning before work, because they understand that being active on a daily basis helps them be not only the best employee, but the best parent and the best citizen that they can be. And that your work helped them value that. Think about that student when they're in their 80s or 90s, and they're waking up and they're all sore and they're tying up their vintage sneakers, and they're walking over to the park and they're doing laps on the track, or maybe they're going to the pool and swimming a few laps. And the reason they're doing it is because they understand that the only reason they have lived such a long, happy, and fulfilling life is because they've been active throughout it, that they've taken care of themselves throughout it. When we think about our physical education programs, we need to remember this. Our programs need to continue serving students long after those students have graduated. We are in this for the long term. There's a great Greek proverb, I should have put up here on the slides, but there's a Greek proverb that says, a society grows great when old men and women plant seeds of trees whose shade they shall never sit in. That's what we do as teachers. We're planting those seeds, and we might not ever see that shade, but we need to be thinking about it now. So, if we're able to help our students develop the skills, the knowledge, and the values they need in order to develop into physically literate individuals throughout their lifetime, it's a journey, then we know we're doing our job as physical educators. And that's why I think a world in which every phys ed program is focused on physical literacy, on developing physical literacy in their students, that's the future of phys ed. The second point here is backwards design, sometimes called standards-based instructional design. I like calling it backwards design. It's a little bit easier to remember, and all the letters fit on my slide. I'm very picky about how my slides look. But when I first got to St. George's School, there was a lot of talk about backwards design. And I was a little iffy on it. I didn't know exactly what it meant. And it wasn't until we did this amazing activity. See, what they did is they had the whole faculty come in, and they broke us off into groups, and each group was given a video. And the video was an interview with a leader who best represented what we hope for in our students, what we want our students to eventually become and achieve. The video my group was given was an interview of Eva Longoria, and I had no idea of all the work Eva Longoria has done for Latino and Latinas in America. So what we did is we watched this interview with Eva Longoria, and we deconstructed it. We looked at Eva Longoria, and we looked at all the different parts, and we decided, okay, what knowledge does she have that has allowed her to be so successful in life? What understandings did she need in order to achieve what she's achieved? And what are the skills that she has that allowed her to do what she has done? By doing this, we built a bit of a scope. And then what we did is we looked at all the grades we offered. By the way, the slide's not cut off. We go up to grade 11 in Quebec. We're just weird that way. Don't ask questions. It's just how it is. We looked at all the grades that we offer at St. George's School. And we took all of those elements that we identified, and we sequenced it out. Between kindergarten and grade 11, what do we want to teach and when? What are we going to do to make sure that by the time our students leave us in grade 11, that they have everything they need to go out and achieve great things on their own? Now, doing that activity really opened up my mind as to, okay, this is what backwards design is. And I had heard about it before, the idea of beginning with the end in mind. I'd read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've been reading up on understanding by design. But I was really curious, okay, how can I take this into consideration when I'm doing my own planning? Now I know that the end goal of physical education is physical literacy. But physical literacy is such a big, broad concept. You can't just go into a lesson plan and be like, okay, everybody, I'm teaching how to be physically literate today. Here we go. Go line up over there and let's run. No, you have to break it down. And that's where I started doing some research, trying to figure out, okay, how could I break down this idea of physical literacy? And that's when I came across the work that Shape America has done. And I'm not a Shape America member. I'm not here representing them. I'm just a fan of the work they've done. And especially the work they did with the national standards and grade level outcomes. See, when I started paying attention to the national standards and grade level outcomes, what I realized is that what Shape America tried to do is they took this big, broad concept of physical literacy and they broke it up into 5 pieces. Those pieces are the national standards. And then they went a step further. They took each national standard and they broke it down further into smaller pieces. Imagine you take a national standard, it's a plate, okay? Imagine it as a plate, and you smash it on the ground, and all these little pieces. All those little pieces, those are the grade level outcomes. If you take them together, glue them back, you have your plate, you've reached your standard. Now, in Quebec, we have competencies, not standards. We have progressions of learning, not grade level outcomes. And I'd done some work with this, but the problem was that when I got to that outcome level, I didn't know where to go from there. And one day I was on Twitter, and Ken Dyer, you tweeted out a video that Terry had put together. And that tweet changed my life. I might not realize it, but it did. And in Terry's video, she explained standards-based instructional design. See, she explained how when you take a single outcome, you can continue to unpack it. You circle the action statement in the outcome, and you underline any of the content. Once you've done that, if you pair that action statement with all the pieces of content, you can create smaller content blocks. And it doesn't end there. You can continue. When you look at each content block, it's up to you then as the educator to decide, okay, what are the smaller learning pieces that make up this content block? And you'll go on and you'll do that for each of the content blocks you've identified. Once you have all of your learning pieces, then you start determining, okay, what is the evidence I need to see? What evidence am I looking for to know that my students are learning? And then you build your assessment tools that are aligned with that evidence. And then, only then, once you know everything you're looking for, then you start designing your learning activities, which will allow students to be in situations in which they can apply that learning. Learning is where it's at. So if we look at this globally here, you have physical literacy, which is broken down to national standards which are broken down to grade level outcomes. Then you unpack each grade level outcome into content blocks, and each content block gets unpacked into even smaller learning pieces. From there, you design your learning activities, and you go out and you teach hard. You go into every lesson with a lot of energy. You go into every lesson with all your assessment tools ready to go so you can assess on an ongoing basis. You provide feedback to your students. You bring modifications to activities to ensure that every student is learning. Because as they learn those smaller pieces, well, then they're picking up that content. And as they pick up all that content, they're mastering those outcomes. And as they master all those outcomes, they're showing proficiency towards that standard. And as they show proficiency to all those standards, then you can feel confident knowing that you've done everything you can to give your students all the tools they need to continue to develop as physically literate individuals throughout their lifetime. Now here's the thing. Purposeful curriculum design. And when I say purposeful curriculum design, I mean this whole process of backward design. It is the key to developing physically literate individuals in physical education class. But when you look around at programs, you don't see a whole lot of backwards designed programs out there. And the reason is that all this is extremely hard work. It is not easy. I can't tell you the amount of hours that I've spent at a coffee shop looking at outcomes, trying to unpack them, feel like my brain's mush, my eyeballs are bleeding. I'm just so tired of doing it, but you know, last summer I got to meet one of my heroes, Dr. Don Hellison, who's the author of Teaching Personal and Social Responsibility Through Physical Activity. And in that book, right at the beginning, he says there's a question that we need to continuously ask ourselves as educators. Anybody remember what that question is? It says we have to ask ourselves, what's worth doing? If you ask yourself that question when you're thinking about your curriculum design and backwards designing all the work that goes into it, yeah, it's hard work, but it's work worth doing. And that's why I really believe that if we're all able to get to a place, we're able to backwards design our programs, always focus on physical literacy, that's the future of PhysEd. Point 3 here is assessment. Raise your hand if ever you've struggled with assessment in your teaching. And by the way, this isn't me modeling, this is my hand way up. Assessment is an extremely difficult thing to achieve in class. When you're given upwards of 100 students that you have to assess, you're set up for failure. When you're given extremely short periods in which you can teach, it's almost impossible. And that's why oftentimes we see teachers fall back on the terrible 3. They wind up assessing on effort, participation, and whether or not students are changing in PhysEd. But the thing is, if we're assessing these 3 things very subjectively, we're not helping our students develop the skills, the knowledge, and the values that they need in order to continue to develop physically literate individuals. And by the way, just speaking, I hear so many teachers tell me, it's like, Joey, I have so much heart rate data, you have no idea. I'm like, that's amazing. What are you assessing with it? Participation. When we're looking at this whole global thing here, this global path, and you're talking about unpacking and then teaching back up, you can't help your students get back up that ladder unless you're assessing on an ongoing basis. You need to know exactly where your students are at all times in their learning. And you need to make sure that you're developing tools that are helping you collect as much evidence as possible. When you do that, then you can look at that evidence. You can determine where students are at in their learning, and this is the most important part. You can communicate that information with them. And you don't only want to communicate that information with your students, you want to communicate it with parents as well. High quality assessment is a great way for you to advocate for your program. A lot of parents have no idea what we do as physical educators. They just assume that it's the same thing that they went through when they were kids. If you're able to assess students on criteria that are aligned with physical literacy, and you can communicate that to parents, that will go so much further than anything else you can do here. We need to inform parents as to what we're doing as physical educators. Now, bringing up Amanda, I swear she's not paying me here to be promoting her, but I respect her so much and she's done so much to help me that I want to put her back up here. Amanda last year wrote a great blog post about assessment, and it really got me thinking and reflecting on what high quality assessment looks like. And by the way, if you want to check out any of her blog posts, they're all super high quality, moveliveLearn.com. She's incredible. But what the blog post got me thinking is that for assessment to be high quality, it should always be relevant to clear learning objectives, and it needs to be provided to students, it needs to inform students on their learning progress in an ongoing fashion. Unless we're achieving this in our assessment, we're not doing the best job that we can do. And yeah, assessment is not easy. But think of it this way. Think of a map. And you're telling your students, okay, you need to be there, you're starting off here, go. Yes, you want your students to explore a little bit in their learning. You want them to try on, like Dean was talking about this morning, you want them to fail at times as they discover new ways of going about stuff. But unless you're able to provide them with guidance along the way, you're going to get a whole bunch of students that wind up lost in the woods. We need to be doing as a great a job as possible when it comes to assessing our students. It's hard work. Yeah, no doubt about it. But it's work worth doing. And for those of you who are in those impossible situations I was talking about earlier, this is where technology comes in and can be a huge help. There's so much that we can be doing with technology in order to make ourselves present in every aspect of our class and to be assessing our students in an ongoing fashion and even providing them with feedback without us necessarily being there. There are ways of being meaningful about the way we use technology, and it can be a huge help. I do it in my teaching all the time. It can be a huge help with assessment. So a world in which everybody is nailing assessment and that we're all doing a great job, that's the future of physical education. The last point is passionate educators. There has never been a better time for you to discover and develop your passion for teaching. Social media allows you to create a professional learning network that you can fall back on, that you can count on when you're facing those tough challenges and those obstacles in your teaching. They will raise you up. Trust me, I know, I've been there, and I would not be standing here on the stage were it not for my personal learning network. If you want to be the best teacher you can be, there's nothing stopping you right now. There's an American term that I love, and that term is bootstrapping. Now, when I was researching the term, I found out that it came from an old story about a man traveling on a horse who all of a sudden got stuck in a pit of mud. And to get out of the mud, what he did is, defying all laws of gravity and physics, took himself by the straps of his boots and pulled himself out. In the tech world, when people talk about bootstrapping, they're referring to the fact of growing your business, growing your startup, without any external help coming in and helping you out. You're doing it all on your own. We need to take this term and make it our own. So let's do that. Let's go out there and bootstrap our own professional development. Let's throw every excuse that we know out the window, and let's go on and become the best teachers that we can be. People ask me all the time, first of all, you have to know I spend an absurd amount of time online. All right, if you ask my wife, she'll tell you. It's ridiculous the amount of time that I spend online, if I'm blogging, if I'm tweeting, or whatever it may be. But I'm doing it because I'm learning and I'm growing, and I know that it's helping me become a better teacher. People ask me, Joey, what's your reason? The truth is that I don't have a single reason as to why I do it and why I've dedicated myself to it. What I do have, though, is about 180 reasons. These kids, my students, they need and deserve the best physical education I can provide them with. They need me to be at my very best. So yeah, when it's late at night, I'm trying to read up on all the tweets that have gone out throughout the day, or if it's Sunday morning and I'm writing up that blog post, or if I'm exhausted at the end of the day from teaching and I go on and I decide to reflect through my vlog. These are the people who are driving me to do that. So the future of PhysEd, an understanding and focus on physical literacy, purposeful curriculum design, focus again on physical literacy, ongoing assessment that informs our students of where they're at in their learning, and continuous professional development that helps us develop into passionate educators. Does any of this here sound new to you? No. Because these are best practices that people have been preaching for as long as I can remember, way before I ever even decided to become a teacher. But the thing is, these things are not easy. And oftentimes, we cut corners, we push things aside because it's hard work. But I'm going to wrap this up here with one final quote. And that quote is that the future of PhysEd, the future of physical education, is PhysEd. We need to get back to the fundamentals of what we know makes for effective physical education. We need to stop trying to call it by other names. We need to stop adding bells and whistles. Let's just go out and be excellent for our students. Everybody, I hope you've had a great conference. Thank you so much for coming and listening to me talk today.